To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Father, we just love you so much. And we're so grateful to be in your presence, come before your throne, Father God. We thank you for tonight. We pray that you give us wisdom, give us understanding, that as we do the work of the district, that you guide us. Father, it's a busy time of year, the summer wrapping up, and all the kids and parents and teachers getting ready to go back to school. I pray your blessings upon that. I pray that we start the year strong, Father God, and that you have your hand upon it. We thank you for the administration and the teachers that love our kids. Father, we love you so much. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see a full house. Desiree, I know you got the roll call. Mr. Stamp is in Waco with our little league team. We lost a tough one today, but I know we're really proud of those kids and all they've accomplished there. We're going to have open forum, which is a time for anyone in the community to share their thoughts with the board. Just a reminder, it's not a question and answer, and we cannot discuss it unless it's on our agenda when it comes to that point in the agenda. But we do welcome your thoughts. We're going to ask you to limit your, because we've only got a couple of folks, limit your comments to 5 minutes. And please, when you come up, state your name, and we're glad you're here. So, Ms. Giles, Heather Giles, please come share your thoughts.
Hi, I'm Heather Giles. I am a 2002 graduate from Wylie High School. Started here first day of kindergarten to my last day of high school. I have 2 kids in the district now, a 3rd grade son and a 5th grade daughter. Many of the people here tonight are with us. We wanted to first thank you for your time, and we're here to ask you to consider our proposal for a gymnastics club at Wylie ISD. We know that you know better than anyone that our district is growing rapidly, and with that growth comes diversity. This diversity includes students with interests and excellence in extracurricular activities not currently offered by the school. As a group of parents, we were beyond ecstatic to see Wylie ISD acknowledging that, and pleased to see the addition of clubs such as the Bass Fishing Club. We know there's a talented group of male and female athletes in the district that would love the opportunity to showcase their excellence in the sports of gymnastics to their peers and to be recognized for that talent under the school name. Between Gymnastics Sports Center and Beamer's Gymnastics, there are at least 30 students in the district competing at club level now. Coaches at both gyms agree, if given the opportunity, we would likely have some of the top competitors in the district, region, and state. In the 2021-22 season, GSC women's program had 11 individual state champions, 2 team champions, and they also had, 2 individual regional champions. These group of girls and boys compete against gyms from all over the state, including gyms who train athletes like Simone Biles, Nasty Lucan, Carly Patterson, Madison Koshin, and Reagan Smith at the Olympic and collegiate level. In the regional competition, the girls are competing against athletes from Colorado, Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, and Wyoming. Beamer's Gymnastics also had 2 state champions this year. If these athletes were able to showcase their talent at the high school level, the potential for being able to compete at the college level is increased. There are also scholarship opportunities these athletes are not eligible for when only competing in club gymnastics. Connie, or CJ Jackson, former head gymnastics coach of AISD and owner of Gymnastics Sports Center in Abilene, had a passion for gymnastics, a passion for his student athletes, and a passion to expand and grow the sport. Before his untimely passing last fall, CJ had begun putting together a proposal for Wylie ISD to foster the beginning of club gymnastics organization. He wanted to see the sport grow in the community and as it's rapidly growing across the nation. We then concluded a proposal for the club, a copy of the Texas High School Gymnastics Coaches Association Constitution and Manual of Rules, and an estimate of fees and a schedule from AISD last year. We know a big concern is in considering this proposal will be the number of school days missed by the athletes. Most meets held within the district are on Thursday evenings. This would require little to no absence from the student athletes. Meets in the city of Abilene would require no school missed. Travel to San Angelo and Odessa may be required for some in-district meets, with the possibility of needing to leave school early on some Thursday afternoons. If students qualify for the regional or state competition, they will possibly need to miss 2 days of school for these. We feel this is very minimal in comparison to some of the other extracurricular activities that the school participates in and sponsors. As a group of parents who invest a large portion of our time and finances in our children for this sport, we also invest in their academics and agree to hold them to a standard of excellence in the classroom as well as in the gym. The THSGCA has not yet released the competition schedule for this year. We anticipate this will be finalized by early September. While there are some unknowns, we have full support of Coach Brandon Cook, the head boys coach at AISD, to help guide this program and support the Wylie Club in all ways possible. Justin Powers, a Wylie alumni, served as interim coach at AISD after CJ's passing, has a strong understanding of how Texas high school gymnastics functions, and has committed to serving as the coach for the Wylie's club. Jana McGarry, Wylie East Junior High School teacher, has committed to being the faculty sponsor for the club. Being a startup program, we know the first year will be a time of trial, error, and growth. We feel we have the opportunity for the program to be fostered by coaches and staff with an understanding of high school gymnastics and see potential to develop the program. Our dream as parents of Wylie ISD athletes is to see the program prosper and develop into a school-supported extracurricular activity like bells and weightlifting. Please let us know what questions and concerns you may have. We would love the opportunity to move forward with this program and let our students shine in their area of expertise representing the school. Who knows, we might have the next Simone Biles or Suni Lee walking around our campuses daily. The Wylie community has been fortunate enough to see alumni throw passes in NFL postseason games. We don't want to miss the opportunity to see one of our own flipping on TV at the collegiate or elite level. Thank you, parents of Wylie ISD gymnasts.
And you'll leave your proposal with Desiree, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right. Mr. Clay Trumbull.
Good evening, Clay Trumbull. I've spoken before. I think most of you all know me. First, Dr. Wylie, thank you for your service and coming back on the board to fill an unexpired term. But certainly want to thank the board and the administrators. I understand, I believe our educators are going to be getting a pay raise based on the pay scale that was released, and certainly want to thank y'all's hard work for that. I think that'll be much appreciated because I know it's tough out there. I try to hire people all the time, and unfortunately the hiring is difficult these days. And I'm sure in all these principals, assistant principals probably find it tough too. So certainly thank you for your work. Hopefully we can this will help maintain and attract some new employees for us. So certainly want to say thank you for that. What I do want to visit about is some of our technology needs. I know we've done a good job of getting our technology maybe at least to the, I'll call it, use a pun here, to the 50-yard line. Got a couple of first downs, but I think we need to do a little better. You know, and I'm going to speak personally for my wife's campus. Her boss is here sitting next to my left. Thank you, sir. But you know, Chrome carts. They have roughly 900 kids. She's at the West Junior High. You know, but they only have roughly 150 Chromebooks to go around for 900 students. Between after spring break, March through the end of the year, those Chromebooks were checked out for the rest of the year. And so if she wanted to do any kind of, you know, in-person learning, or excuse me, digital learning, there was no Chromebooks for her, or really the majority of the teachers. If you basically take 900 minus 150, you got 750 kids that are without the education or without digital education. And as you all know, most of our kids, probably all of our kids that have grown up, pretty much have an iPhone in their hand these days. And so we just need to, as a community, try to find a good way to help our students be able to have better technology. I know a lot of districts do that. Budget's tight. There's no doubt about that. So I just hope, we're talking about budgets, that we can look at technology and how we're spending some of our budgeted dollars. Again, I know you've got to make everything add up. We've got to pay education, and that's certainly important. But please, we need to invest, certainly invest in our kids, and putting that in the technology is a very, very big thing. So please, when you're talking about that, I think all these folks would probably agree. Technology is going to go a long way, and that's where we really need to look at spending some of our money. Two other items I'd like to talk about is later on in the agenda. I think it's item 5C, long-term facilities planning committee. I'd love to know how to get on some of these committees. I know there's several out there. I did some research online, couldn't find anything where it says, hey, sign up for a committee. Hey, we have 7 committees that are available for the general public. And maybe these aren't open to the public. Maybe they're just, for faculty and staff and board members, which I understand some is fine. But I think, the Wylie community is great about volunteering. I just think it'd be nice if we had, maybe more input. If somebody said, hey, here's a link if you're interested in signing up for XYZ committee. Here's my expertise. Certainly if it's buildings, you probably, maybe get an engineer, or get 3 or 4 folks, in the community that are something like that. Maybe if it's technology, you're looking at that, you get somebody that's in the technology field, or if it's, athletic facilities. There's a lot of folks that maybe have that ability that might want to volunteer their time. And so just maybe a little more transparency on the committees, and hopefully these committees aren't just 2 or 3 folks, and it's really the same 2 or 3 for all of our committees. Because certainly the Wylie folks can bring a lot of suggestions and a lot of things, and again, just hopefully, it's a little more transparent. So that's really all it is. And the final item is our financial transparency. So we're at paid bills. I noticed that it's alphabetized, and then it starts over, and then it's re-alphabetized. If we could alphabetize the whole paid bills report, I think that'd be a little easier to see it. It's like A through Z, and it's like we paid bills probably the 1st through the 10th, maybe the 11th through the 20th is alphabetized in the next group. I just think it'd make it a little easier to, hey, why did we pay, for example, Steve Keenan 5 times this month for $50? Or something like that. Which we didn't pay. We didn't pay Steve Keenan $50 because that's probably a bad example since he's the board president. So we paid Joey Lott to drive the bus 5 times $50. Maybe that's what it was. But just to see things, and then also maybe if we have repeated repairs, maybe to a particular campus or something that's just a little more descriptive, so we can kind of see, instead of it just says AC repairs, maybe it's AC repairs to the East Intermediate or AC repairs to the high school, just to maybe help out on some of the expenses that we're spending money on. So again, thank you for your time, and again, thank you for your service, and Dr. Lowry, thank you for coming back. So.
Thank you. Thanks, folks, for coming and sharing. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to be here a little while. You're welcome to stay for the whole thing. So don't let us run you off. But thank y'all for coming. I'm going to assume that everybody here has had an opportunity to review the minutes. And unless there is an objection, we'll approve those as presented. All right. Consent agenda. Carol, let's talk about holidays.
I'll stay here. No objections. You can hear me okay. Starting on page 8. Bill's branded fence contractor has been working on improving fencing around multiple campuses where there's kind of been, ever since you've outed, there's a lot of discussion about safety and things like that. So we're improving some of our big fencing around the campuses.
How's that coming, by the way?
Mr. Best, you want to give it? I mean, I think we're getting close. We're going to be ready
Yeah, we're
for
good
school
on
to start.
our
little fencing projects that we did. You can see we're just hanging gates. We've got everything purchased, and on the west side was just little fill-ins and et cetera. So I think we're going to be able to meet our need there for now. We're doing some projects on the east side. Well, one project here in the front, and on an expansion on the east side, East Elementary, and that came through fundraiser money that they had. And so the 3/4 of the way done on the East Elementary today. We had all our crew there. We've been using our mow crew in-house pretty much to do it. And then we fixed to pour a little corn here and extend this week. So we're doing good on that portion.
Page 9 has got the payroll for July, $2.6 million. Then we're starting with our visa charges after that. I don't think I marked anything really until I got over to page 10, AJ Enterprises. That's 9 different repairs for $16,000. One of them was fuel injectors. There's a lot of air conditioning repairs and things like that we do in the summertime. Page 13, Big Country Tire, $15,210. I know that was for 5 sets of tires plus some other incidentals with that.
Did you say page, what page?
13.
Okay, can you go
No,
back to?
I'm on 11. I had shifted my page.
Okay.
My apologies on that, so. I was on Big Country Tire. I was gonna move down to Synergy Technology, those smart boards. That's 20 smart boards. They run about $2,300 a piece.
Where are we in the
Michael,
refurbishing?
how far, are we pretty much caught up for this? Where are we as far as the smart boards?
We are very close to everybody currently having one. There's a few missing, but almost there, I'd say 95% with all the boards.
Or, I mean, if they were functioning and they were updatable, serviceable, they may still be in place.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do we have a plan to update all of them?
Well, our plan is to, it's really an attrition plan, because as long as it's serving the needs,
Right.
the software and so forth, then they're functional. So I think what happened this last time, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but they were no longer serviceable because the software.
Was no longer supported.
Yeah.
Software.
Okay.
Do we have more ordered, we're just waiting for them, or?
Are we ordered, have we,
Not at this time.
Okay.
is everything here?
Everything's here, but, that we
Okay.
got, yeah.
Pretty big bill for the Education Service Center, $10,633. I counted up 188 summer classes for our staff. I didn't count the number of participants in that, but that's along with our contract that we pay on a monthly basis. Ingram Concrete, $11,876. That's having to do with the CTE, the new building that we're putting together there. So on page 12, you see Texas Courts and Windscreen, $31,000. They resurfaced 6 courts, West Junior High, and did screens with those as well.
New nets, poles,
Who owns that company?
That's the Wises, isn't it?
yes.
Is that Wylie Wise?
That's
Yeah.
Jay.
I mean,
Jeff.
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 Just
Wylie retired. His health is not real good.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
They worked hard to get it, it was so hot.
yeah.
I did list our note payments to US Bank for $113,000 and $108,000. That's on the tax maintenance and time warrant notes. Those come out of our general fund dollars and are paid in August. And
How much more do we have in paying that?
I think that, so that was a 5-year note, I believe, and It should be up in 2024 or 5. That was something I had shared at that last, I'm having trouble remembering.
They're just curious.
Yeah, it's 4 or 5, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was good.
And just along with that, I don't usually list our bond payments. They're made at the same time, middle of August. We'll be paying $890,000 out of our bond payment money, this August. And one of those is a 2015 note, so that will clear up in 2025. The supplemental list bills then are listed on page 13. And there's Accurate Construction, they're working on that CTE building at the high school, $14,000.
So we're just pretty much waiting on steel, right?
Yeah, that's the big, yeah, we're waiting on the big steel and then we can roll.
Kyle Corbin Landscaping, $32,000. I think that maybe
Is that
his
it?
last
Is that
payment.
it? That's his last
Yeah,
payment?
should be. That gets us up to the total that we were originally quoted, so.
MHSC Energy Management, $267,000, that's the balance on the lighting project. Like we did.
How long did it take them?
They did it in under a month.
Yeah. It was, they worked in like,
They had 12 guys
All the time.
at one point.
they
Yeah,
were
they
working all
were-
the time.
It's impressive. Yeah.
Makes us to see the change, the difference that it makes.
But these are those lights.
I'm talking about-
Every campus on the west
I'm talking about
side.
this, not.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I hope so. That's the reason.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions on the bills that I ran by really quickly? The next page is the cash balances. With notice, the balance in all funds at the end of July was $11,055,000. And on that debt service, that $1,064,000, that'll go down to $174,000 next week. The revenues listed on page 15. And that line 5744, that's where we got the donation for our CTE building.
But not all of that. That's,
No,
no, that's not.
a large portion of it.
The good news is that we got more revenue than we projected, so that's nice. Then you see, you get to go to the next page and all that goes.
So-
Spend every penny.
So does that gift just cover the building, or does it cover like the equipment that's gonna be used?
Well, it covers as much as we can get out of it. In other words, every penny we can save on the building will go towards,
Whatever they need.
yeah. Yeah, there's gonna be quite a few expenses on equipment things we'll have to work on, so.
Joe, on the Medicaid SHARS money, we budgeted, so we got a heck of an increase. Thank
That's
you,
right.
Mrs. Vaughn, and everybody else involved in that. We don't expect that again this year, this next year?
There's been some changes in the calculations and the way it's done, and so we really don't expect it to be as high. The
Okay.
way they were doing a catch-up at one point.
Okay, so we went back to the
anticipated it'll be
350,
that high.
went back to the,
Yeah, I don't think it'll go back to 350. I think that was based on prior years. I don't think we, you know, as Shawnee has said, we even though we had some issues when we went through the audit with them, they have never said anything about withholding any of those funds. So, now, can they? I think they can. but they did not say that. I think those were more corrective actions, so, and I know Ms.
So
Vaughn-
withholding or like decreasing? Because I feel like there's a
Well, there
difference.
should be less, I think that's what you're saying, the calculations are gonna be a little, Shawnee, you want to shed any light on that?
I don't know the numbers, but I know, I do feel comfortable saying that the amount we received this year for the quarterly reimbursements and then the big one at the end will be less. Because two things are changing. What they call the ratio, in other words, the amount that they pay us based on what we request to be paid. Those ratios, the way they're calculated, that is changing. And also the number of, I've got to be more careful about the number of what we call providers that we request reimbursement on. I have to look at that a little closer. That's probably, for me, the biggest thing I learned out of the audit is what to request reimbursement on. And so I think those two factors are what will lessen our income, but I don't know by how much.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, she's saying she learned that, we were doing everything the way we understood it was supposed to be done.
Correct, yes,
And then,
that's true.
So, anyway, it was a
So,
learning.
but withholding means you'd eventually get it back, decreasing means you're never gonna get it. So like, are they withholding it till we fix?
No, so we have heard of no withholding.
Oh,
We have
you
not
just
heard of
okay, I
any
thought you said you had
withholding.
heard.
I'm
of it.
sorry,
Yeah.
if I said that. I
So
said
after
it.
the
Okay.
audit, we received information from Health and Human Services who said these, based on the auditor's report, who works for TEA, then their letter said, these are the concerns that we want you to write a corrective action plan for.
Yeah.
But in that information, they could have also said, based on these certain issues, for the next year, we will withhold certain amounts. So we wouldn't have to pay back any we've already earned, but our new income could be decreased by a certain amount if they had chosen to do that, but they have not said that.
Okay.
We submitted our corrective action plan and have moved on and have not heard any more from them. And mostly it goes to training, training this, training that. Yes, we'll look, how we put things in our IEPs or our documents, how we document, the documentation that our providers keep, things like that. Not that we were doing anything wrong, just how can we do it better?
And so, going back to the withholding, I do think we're gonna see smaller numbers
Correct.
because the calculations are different, but I don't think it's gonna be because of withholding.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not sure where I was.
I think you're going to the expense side, maybe. We will have, on the expense side, of course, we're gonna bring to you some amendments for next month. Several of those functions are gonna be overspent, so we'll bring all those to you next month.
On the
Next month or the
29th of this
I mean, I'm
month.
sorry, next meeting, the 29th.
Anybody have any questions? Here,
I move we pay the bills.
second. Did you get that, Desiree? All right, any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously, Desiree. Student code of conduct.
Yes, sir. As Mr. Hagler's coming up, I want to take an opportunity real quick. I've mentioned Michael Dixon several times. Michael, if you'd stand up for just a second. Michael is sliding into Brad McVeigh's position. He's really doing all the hardware in the district, and Brad is is going to a part-time position. He's really gonna be working with mainly Skyward. Is that fair, Michael? Is that? Yeah, and he'll help us when we need him. But Michael is doing that, so I want y'all to recognize his face. And let me kind of work here. Of course, y'all know Reagan. She's going to be at the high school principal. Courtney Stewart is a new assistant. Wave high, Courtney. There's Courtney. She's going to be with us as a high school. Let's see, where am I? Oh, there's Miss Red Dietz is in the back. I saw there was a company in Fredericksburg said Dietz something. Peaches? Dietz Peaches or something? Anyway, maybe not your family. Liz Carey, she's taking Miss Todd's place at the West Elementary. Who am I missing? And somebody you're going to approve tonight, I'm praying, Mr. Penny. Andy Penny is going to be working in a community relations group. So
I want to know why we don't have 3 more chairs so these guys at the back.
Go front. And I'm sorry, Karen, of course, she's not a new face, but she's new at the East Elementary, so I apologize for not saying that. But, we're really excited with this group this year. We're looking forward to great things out of all of them.
So, Mr. Lapp, you know, Mr. Smith always was at the back. And I think we need to end that. I think we need to have chairs right up here so those guys can be right front.
They're very comfortable. I'll get
All needs to be held up.
It's either that or we have a shave, beard, you know. We have a
Miss Mary, though, she's already changed the high school principal row. She sat on the front row there.
Front row.
Pull back.
All right.
I apologize that I did not give you a window to do that.
I forgot. It's not your fault.
So-
Mr. Hagler coming with the student code of conduct.
Well, welcome, everybody.
We are seeking approval of the 2022-23 Student Code of Conduct. Just to remind you that no changes are made, no updates are made to the Student Code of Conduct in years where there's not a legislative session. So what we have in front of you is actually last year's Student Code of Conduct that you've already approved. We simply just changed the date on it. Another reminder is that handbooks and student code of conducts, we use TASB as a guidance. They give us guidance and direction. We actually use the template that they provide us. And the reason I bring that up is I know the assistant principals are going to talk to you about their handbooks. Since you do adopt the student code of conduct, it supersedes anything that goes in the handbook. So basically, we're asking for you to approve the exact same student code of conduct we presented you last year. Any questions?
Make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 code of conduct. Here's a second.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks. You got that? All right, any other questions? Well, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Set a date to hold a public hearing on our budget and proposed tax rate, Mr. Wylie.
Yes, sir. We would like to request that you set that date for August 29th. The rate that we're going to ask you to adopt for the tax rate is going to be a total tax rate of $1.03. That's down 9 cents from $1.12. That'll be 86.12 cents on the M&O and 16.88 cents on INS. And so at that hearing, we would also be hearing on the budget as well. So,
Mr. Light, is that proposed M&O rate our maximum compressed rate?
So the M&O rate is really dictated to us by the state of Texas in that the maximum compressed rate, if you can't go over it, and if you go under it, they penalize you. So we're conveniently encouraged to adopt the maximum compressed rate.
Which that is?
Which 86.12 is.
Anybody have any other questions? I know we spent some time in the budget workshop over this. Anybody? Questions? What's your pleasure?
I move we set the date to hold public hearing on 2022-23 budget and proposed published tax rate of $1.03, which is .8612 M&O and .1688 INS for August 29th, 2022.
A second.
Any other? No? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? We have a date, Mr. Wylie. Awesome. Consider property and casualty insurance for 22-23.
Yes, sir. Jeremy Diller is here with us tonight. He's been a man that looked all over the place for property and casualty insurance. I will tell you that he cringes every time he makes a phone call to me, and because I'm always trying to get him to come down, and he's always got bad news as far as insurance goes. If y'all are aware at your own domicile, it's going up. We've got larger number of buildings, larger square footage to insure than we've ever had, and so therefore our total cost is continues to go up. So I'm going to let Jeremy talk a little bit about what he's done and what he's found for us. And
sure, thanks. Thanks for letting me come to the board tonight. So I do have good news is that Craig and the rest of the team, we've got a grant that through the provider that came back and provided a grant to the district for $7,166 for cameras. So that's going to be forthcoming. But like Superintendent Light said, the claims, especially in the property side, has just been not good in Texas. This feels like it's the same thing every year we talk about, but we did add 11 million in more values to the district. So that kind of pushed up the pricing with that. We are in Region 14, we're second out of the large number of districts that I work with and that I know about, that we're second in how much we pay, like the lowest amount. And a lot of other superintendents that I've talked to, it's been, let's say, very difficult conversations to have with them. And it's because they're seeing more like 40% increases and things like that. So there's a couple things that are causing this. Winter Storm Uri was a big cause. Plus we had, before that, we had hailstorms, and we continue to have hailstorms. But that's causing definitely issues there. And then also inflation, supply chain issues, building cost, the cost of building, cost of construction, those are all driving the cost increases. Really, you're seeing the big increase is on the property side. And that's what there's really not a huge difference on the liability side. We've got a little bit of an increase there, but it's really property driven. And that's the primary focus. But I don't know if you have any questions or anything.
So let me make a couple of comments about, you were looking, you've got 3 different quotes.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So I looked at, we've got 2 other options that we looked at. The current provider, they came back and they wanted to do a 1% wind and hail deductible. We said you can't do both a deductible change and a premium change. So you kind of pick one or the other. And so they came back and said, we're going to do a premium change and increase that. I said, let's keep the deductible flat then as to what it was. But the other 2 providers, they're a little bit more expensive, but they really, where they get you is on the deductible. So the wind and hail deductible is significantly higher with the other ones. And the reason they're doing that is the insurance carriers, they want to get farther away and have you all pay more of the deductible, right? So they want to get farther away on that. And so that's what we're seeing. And so that with the other 2 providers, it was significant in the deductible part, but they are also higher as well.
And it's mainly talking about hail, wind and
hail, yes sir.
Is where the issue is. That's quite a bit. Wright Specialty was actually at 5%.
Yeah, that's a 5% deductible. So, and we have I work with another district in Region 14 that works with them, and we have to do a buy down. So they do the 5% and then they buy down to a lower amount. So they have to buy another policy that goes with it.
And so also, you had talked about our rate per 100.
Yeah, so one way you can evaluate between the different school districts is you all have different property values and total insured values, TIV. And so one way to compare different districts is what do you pay per a rate of $100 of assessed value. So your rate is pretty low compared to, it's actually the second best in Region 14. And there's and it's
26.
Yeah, 26, and it's better than the ones in Region 15 as well. So yeah, and there's another district I'm working with that had a pretty sizable hail claim, and so I've been speaking with them and telling them, look, you really need to double whatever you've been paying, double it, because that's what the premium is going to go to. Because if you have a sizable claim, it's hard to get coverage at times. So thankfully there's been no claims, so it's been not anything significant.
So just so y'all know too, there are some interesting things happening in the property and casualty world in Texas. There's one pool that is struggling to make payments, and there's some in our region that they're in a litigation with them. I saw Lubbock ISD's in litigation. Theirs was huge. It was $100 million claim. And so also at the same time, you've got everybody in this region of Texas. Tell me, Jeremy, there's a band where they call it the high hail. There's a high hail area, and we're in it. That doesn't help us any.
Yeah, so for example, to that point, like Liberty Mutual Insurance, they're very selective. They say, we're not going to do anything in this area.
Yeah. You can't hardly get anybody to ride for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they don't like school districts just because of the amount of rooftops with schools. Because you think about all the gymnasiums, all those. It's just a lot of square footage for them when you talk about rooftops. So I think you hit most of the high points on this. Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is y'all are with TPS, Texas Political Subdivisions. They've gone from 11 million in member equity to 15 million, so they're increasing their member equity. They're getting seemingly stronger, and so that's a good thing. We want to make sure you're partnered with folks that provide audited financial information, provide that have the means to pay if you have a claim, right? So that's the one thing, is you don't want to pay a lot of money and then come to find out you're not going to get reimbursed for a claim. Because other districts have run into that issue. And I think TAX sent out an email earlier this year, just said basically to make sure you're checking with who you're partnering with, because it could have serious ramifications on they talked about other school districts that were having to go and get do fundraisers or pass bonds to be able to pay for some of the things that they were
It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically with TPS, that was a $572,000 quote, and the next closest was Wright with a $664,000.
Correct.
And then Pete was even higher than that, so.
Joe, in your letter, you said it was a 24% increase. Was
what I
most
think.
of that because of the new building?
I wouldn't say, part of it was the 11 million additional, but I wouldn't say most of that. We're seeing increases across the board. Everyone's getting an increase. So it didn't help that you added 11 million, but it's.
I was gonna say yes. That's you, Jeremy. Thank you. He's the tall one. He's much got more hair. Jeremy, thank you for coming. He's come the last several years. We appreciate it. And I really believe he's working hard for the district and to find a carrier that we can depend on and yet delivers a good deal for the buck, so.
I do have good news on the workers' compensation. That's going to stay the same as last year.
Yeah, so that's the other thing he works for. He has gotten our workers' comp flat rate for 3 years, even though our workforce is increasing. So that was a positive.
Thanks, Chair. Are there any other questions or thoughts, concerns?
I'll make a motion, we approve the property and casualty insurance for 2022-2023. Texas political subdivisions in the amount of $572,251.
Man, that's a lot of insurance.
We're insurance poor.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go, Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Jeremy. You don't have to stay. Jeremy's heading back to Bernie tonight.
Be careful.
Be careful, that's right.
All right, thank you.
We need to approve or consider approving a memorandum of understanding with the Taylor County Learning Center.
Yes, sir. Each year we enter into an agreement with Taylor County Learning Center. They serve us with our JJAEP, which is Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program. The only thing that has changed is that their prices are $125 per day for discretionary expulsion, and discretionary expulsion means that Chapter 37 doesn't require that they be sent to JJAEP. That's $125 on a regular ed student, $140 for a special ed student. If the student is required to be put there, the cost is on them. That's part, and so these alternative education programs are in counties of 125,000 or more, and so we've been doing this since 2000 and have an agreement with them. So again, if somebody were to be required, mandatory JJAEP, there is no cost to us. It's when we say someone is a frequent offender and they're more than we can deal with, we're going to ask they go to the JJAEP as well. We don't use them a lot, but we have used them.
You said counties with 125,000 or more. What do counties do? Smaller counties do.
So that's a good question. So Texas is in a situation where when a kiddo is expelled, these are basically expellable offenses. What used to happen is they'd expel them, they were on the streets. And guess what? If they were having difficulties making good decisions, they were out on the streets making poor decisions. So in a smaller community, I think they just have a little longer fuse and they try to come up with some solutions within the school district. And so you do have DAEP options, District Alternative Education Programs, and I would nearly think most of those counties that are smaller than that would have those options.
Are there any other questions?
And just as a point of reference, you see on page, what page is it? I don't see the page at the bottom. It's towards the end of that document. They have the different offenses that are mandatory and discretionary, so you get an idea of what we're
Yeah,
talking
there's
about.
2.5 pages of them.
Yeah.
2.5 pages. It's a very diverse list.
And I know for sure the high school principals get to be pretty familiar with chapter 37 and junior high as well, but a little more so at the high school.
All right, I move to approve a memorandum of understanding with Taylor County Learning Center for 2022-2023 school year, including summer school.
Second that. Did you get that second? Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Kim. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously, Desiree. Information.
All right, student handbooks. Who wants to go first? Oh, Mr. Boone is gonna come up and you're gonna do the 4th grade and below.
We have a combination right here. We have some teamwork going on. If you'll pass these around to our crew. And I want to say it is good news to be at the lower level campuses because, as Mr. Hagler mentioned, we look at the template that UIL, the model student handbook, and as I was going through that, a lot of it's middle school and high school, and I get to skip it, so it's kind of nice. But just a few highlights for us. Interesting thing, there are several little changes throughout, but just a few big changes. The first one on page 8, and it's basically 8 and 9, and it's just providing login credentials to each student's parents for online learning programs. So that's something kind of new. I'll make sure everybody knows about that. And on page 16 and 17, just a little bit more information about healthcare appointments. It also includes telehealth appointments, but they are not allowed to use district Wi-Fi because of confidentiality. And the last thing I have for you, a lot of stuff on page 32 and 33. We have epinephrine pens that were placed in our campuses last year, and it's just information about that, just legal stuff on that.
You might describe what happens with an EpiPen.
Well, so there are some EpiPens that are identified for kiddos, and the nurse has those, but there are also an EpiPen that we have for an unidentified, so if someone has a procedure. And if you look on page 33, it just talks about the auto injectors, and basically, like I said, that we put those in our schools. I believe it was last year. Is that right, Mr. Bassett? And it's just information about that.
And so, again, some kiddos have their prescription available. If you get to school and you've never used one, you've never needed one, but all of a sudden you get stung by a wasp or have a food allergy kick in and you need an EpiPen,
We have a
we
break
have
box.
some prescribed
That's correct.
EpiPens.
That's correct.
That we have access for, so.
We have the auto injectors. Mhm. And that's really the main things that I have for you. Any questions on that?
So let me just, last year, how many EpiPens were used? I know we had, did anybody, you
We
had
didn't
used
use any.
one?
Yeah, we did.
Elementary.
And we found out you're supposed to call 911 and have an ambulance come, but the parent can refuse the ambulance once if the parent comes and says they don't want it.
Okay.
We also, if we have someone that's identified and they ride a school bus, we train that school bus driver. The nurse does that also.
And our campus nurses check those boxes each year too to make sure everything's updated.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Boone.
Appreciate
So
it.
he's covered everybody, 4th grade now?
Yeah, I think we got it.
Who's up next?
Good job.
Good job.
And East Intermediate, right, Mr.?
Way to go. Jody LaFrance, I'm representing both the East and West junior highs. We work together, myself and Mike Eames, to put our handbook together. The most notable updates this year, of course, are we just updated the TASB information as required. The other is the consent to human sexuality instruction, which we noted only applies to our 8th graders. So the information that's in the handbook is denoted to say only for 8th grade who are taking the health course at this time. We updated dress code to be more in line with some of the things the high school is requiring because our students are going up there. That note says that costumes, custom accessories, as well as onesies, footed pajamas will not be permitted with expectation, with the exception of school dress days, school dress up days like I think our pep rally days that we have for football and so on. And so those things will be considered under exemption as long as they're noted to be inside the school dress code policy. The other we did note, based on safety needs, is that at the Wylie junior highs will not allow any kind of food delivery services to be delivering food to students. Parents have to bring those in, must bring those into the office and to deliver those to their students. They cannot bring them before school, or students cannot get out of class to go pick them up. We did this. We also moved the table where they'll be sitting into the building, to the second interior from the foyer, so that students cannot go outside the building to pick those up based on safety needs. And then, of course, the last point is that we made a notation that personal communication devices, such as cell phones, we added the earmark of earpods as well, can only be used in specific areas or specific times noted by our campus. And that's all we have. Any questions?
And so let me, before we go on, just tapping back with Mr. Hagler on the sexuality, and remember when he talked about that, when we adopted that policy, that is an opt-in program. That is not, we're gonna offer it, and then if you want to, you have to say, if you don't want it, you have to say no. You have to actually make an affirmative process and say, yes, I want my kid to have that. So that's
and this is all new updates in the handbooks, and we've been talking about it for months. I know it's Max, in a sense, he was on the SHAC committee. We made all these decisions, we made recommendations, y'all approved them, but now the parents and the students are seeing it in the handbook, so there could be some questions, so that's why we make sure we have everything in the handbook. Remember, it's an opt-in with 14 days notice, and Jessica is providing us with the handout, the sheet of material to give the parents. And that doesn't just apply to human sexuality, it also applies to Senate Bill 9, human trafficking, child abuse, dating violence, different types of violence. And it's a separate sheet, it has to be separate from the human sexuality, and the parents have to opt into that as well. It came separately because the governor, he enacted that. That was the second session that he voted on. He approved that. Because it's good. I didn't do him all. Because if we're not sure, he can call the governor, we can approve.
Thank you, Mr. DeFrance, thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Ms. Reagan.
So we worked with the junior high campuses, and so a lot of our updates are similar as far as the dress code goes. We saw that as a necessary update. We also are prohibiting food delivery services for a safety measure. We will still allow parents to bring lunch, but same rules apply, that it has to be during their lunchtime. Students aren't going to be allowed to get out of class. We're also implementing where the parent fills out just a simple form with a student name on it and who dropped the lunch off and what lunch, A, B, or C that their student has. So that's our update with lunch. The update that doesn't have anything to do with the junior high is our parking lot. Years ago, students registered their vehicles with the office, and so we're gonna go back to that. We have parking tags for faculty and staff that look different than student parking tags, and so they'll register their vehicles, and then we'll have the same fee process, just like if they lose an ID, if they don't have a parking tag. And that will be, we understand that there's gonna be some bumps in the road in us figuring out that process, but we think that it's really worth it, just for safety concerns as well. We're not gonna allow loitering in the parking lot before school any longer, and so we'll have staff out there getting kids in the door and getting them in the building so that they're not hanging out in the parking lot. You know, where there's free time, there's sometimes not great things going on, and so we feel like we want to try and stop that as much as possible.
And so I would just say that a lot of the things that these groups have looked at addressing, the lunch issue, you know, it just, things evolved through COVID, that time frame, the parking lot issue when we weren't wanting people to congregate in large groups inside the building. And so we really got in a position where some of those practices that were going on by the kids really were a byproduct of COVID. And so in some of that, there was some things that weren't very good for the students, so we're looking at rectifying those. And I think they've done a great job of coming together with some plans, I think, that'll work. You know, again, nobody is saying you can't bring your lunch to school, so if a kiddo forgets their lunch, the parent can bring it. But there were some definite abuses going on with the Grub Hubs and the different delivery.
We're having Starbucks delivered for breakfast,
Yeah.
and, you know.
And so really it was an issue of jealousy by the administration.
That's right. I needed a pay raise so that I could have my stuff delivered as well. The last thing that I didn't mention is we did update our exemption policy. We're including tardies in that in an effort to reward students for getting to class on time, not being so, you know, we have some punitive measures, but also rewarding students for getting to class on time. And we are opening up fall exemptions to 9th through 11th graders for core classes.
Good, thank you, Ms. Mary.
You're welcome.
Very good stuff. Yeah, now I think we've talked, now comes enforcement, right? That's the fun part.
Well, thank y'all for all that. I know that's painstaking work.
Have the new handbooks been updated on the website yet? Or-
The junior and high school has, I haven't gotten the younger grade yet.
All right, Tasby, Mr.
Yes, sir. That's in San Antonio this year. That ought to be interesting because I don't think it's ever been in San Antonio. The 23rd through the 25th. Just a reminder, Brad is our delegate for that and Miller is the alternate. And so Desiree, I think, has got some communication from some of you, but all of you need to touch base with her. I think you went this summer, so you were not planning on going, right, Cameron? So the rest of you need to communicate with Desiree about your ability to attend that conference. So if y'all will do that, that'd be great. Sure.
Long-term Facilities Planning Committee, Mr. White.
Yes, sir. As I mentioned in the board letter, Robert Gavois has asked that each of the board members kind of give three names of folks that you would like to see on that committee. Really, he's not asking. I had brought some thoughts to him, and I said, well, my thought is that if you are going to do something long range for the facilities, you might ought to stack your committee with younger kids of younger of parents that are younger kids, parents. But he said, yeah, that's okay. I mean, and I understand that, but he also felt like community members, maybe that don't have kids in school, maybe some that are very interested in, watching the tax dollar, making sure we're doing things wisely. Just a nice cross-section of folks on those committees. So if all 7 of you have 3, that'd be 21 members on that committee. And then he did give some recommendations for a few others. So after y'all get those names to Desiree, I will try to look at how to maybe balance that group with other representatives, and we'll go from there. As we have talked, and have seen on the horizon, the high school is filling up fast. We're looking for every square inch of space we can for offices and things like that. So it's upon us. And really, you know, the whole process of looking, if that committee comes back and says, hey, we need another building to do this, or there's really about a total of a 2-year time span from the time, you know, if you have to ask for taxpayer support, you know, you're looking at really, I'm going to say 18 months from the time you talk to an architect and move forward. And then, so you got to have lead time before you ask for voters to support something. So
When are you wanting them to start meeting?
well, and that's, when I talked to him, I was actually trying to see if he felt like it was appropriate for him to come tonight. He said he's very close as he's gathered the data, but he thinks that there will be within the next month. He would like to start that process. He would actually lead that meeting. I did ask him about board representation on those, and he didn't feel like that was necessarily a good thing, because he doesn't want there to be any perception that we're trying to force an agenda from the board. We're looking to get feedback from that committee on a direction to go. So, something that now this is getting a little into the weeds here a little bit, but Stephen will remember some of this. Mr. Hagler brought a 1982 first issue of the Wylie Journal, and in that issue, Stanley Wisenhunt's on the front page of that. It was like a 10-page paper, 12-page, and it had him showing what he thought we should do is have an elementary on 1750 on the east side in 1982. So he was kind of a visionary in some regards, but that bond failed, and so they did not do that. And so
That was the main story in the first edition 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
What else did he recommend?
There were a lot of recommendations in that, and there were like 3 phases, and the third phase had things like an auditorium and things like that. And it said, the comment in the journal was that board members quipped that those were unlikely to happen, those phase 3 things. And so you see, 40 years later, really a lot of those things that he envisioned at that time have come to fruition.
But we missed it. They wanted to build it 3/4 of a mile south of the 707 on 1750. We went the other direction.
Yeah.
What's the commitment level
Of
the committee?
that's a good
We're gonna meet
question.
one time and get they really do.
No, I think this
Needs to
is
be
gonna
like
be,
for
yeah,
a bit.
now, we didn't talk about exactly how many times we would meet, but I would think that would be, at least early on, a little higher frequency, because I think we need to get information to that committee first, and then let them chew on that a little bit, and then come back and then really seek some feedback from that. So I would say, as far as frequency, I would say maybe with 2 times in like the first month or so, and then maybe a little time to bring some more information, or it really kind of depends on the committee and what they ask for. So that wasn't a very good answer for that question, but I will ask him a little more what his practice has been. It's really kind of exciting. If you've been around, there's a lot of housing going up. They got a lot of kids in those houses. So.
All right.
Bad place to.
Well, an oldie but a goodie, but COVID update.
COVID update, real quickly, just if you've been keeping tabs in the paper, the number of positive tests on COVID have gone up. I actually talked to the Chief Administrative Officer for Hendrick Health South, which is Brian Besson, and he said, yes, the numbers are up a little bit right now, but the numbers in ICU are very low. and hospitalizations also low. So COVID doesn't seem to be impacting our health services like the first round did. Any comment about?
Yeah, I'll say this, the last couple of rounds we've seen have been much more mild than it was before. And like you touched on, the hospitalizations haven't really bumped up nearly what they did in a couple years past. But the only reason Hendrick, well, the main driving force for Hendrick changing the dial, ramping up the dial, was because one of the triggers to do that was CDC calling this area a high transmission area. And as soon as things look like they're tapering off, or at least plateauing, and we'll probably dial that back to what we're doing at the hospital as far as masks and limiting visitors and all that, as soon as the CDC backs off of calling us a high transmission. But yeah, it's been I think we're getting to the endemic phase instead of a pandemic phase.
Right. Well, and so we did receive direction from Texas Education Agency on August 5th. I believe, was that the day?
4th, yeah.
4th.
Yeah.
To where basically they have now backed off of what students are required to, is it quarantine the right word, or to limit?
Once there's, if they show signs or symptoms or a positive test, they went to 5 days.
And so,
To start.
an example of that, when I was talking to Brian, I asked this question. He said, that is from onset of symptoms, that 5-day start. So if you started feeling bad on Wednesday, and you may not have even realized it, and then say on Friday you determined that you have COVID, well, the 5-day clock started on Wednesday. So
That's correct.
you on Monday, you have completed your 5 days.
Assuming improved symptoms and
Okay,
no fever.
yes.
Fever-free, improvement in symptoms.
That's correct.
Just like any other community.
Yeah, if you're sick, don't come to school.
Right.
I mean, that's
Basically,
the
our
bottom line.
yeah.
And then, interestingly, there was no direction on staff. They've always given us direction on staff. We are waiting. We've got a few days to wait.
In fact, they took off our direction that we had January 7th. It's not on the website, on the TE website.
The January 7th direction was the 5 days.
Yeah,
When
it
they
was 5
went
days,
from
and now
10 to
they've
5 for
removed
staff.
that. So we're just waiting.
So theoretically, you could say, well, they may have the same type of situation as kiddos, the 5 days. Or they may be saying the adults are, if they're sick, they need to stay home, and if they're not sick, they can come to school. We don't know that for sure.
They've been pretty specific in black and white from March 2020, and for some reason, this is one document, that's all we have at the moment, so.
The earlier documents were 20 pages or so, but this one's a 1-page document.
Yeah, so we don't know what's happening.
So that's where we are. We will update through our plan, our return to learn plan, as soon as we get more information. But that's what we have right now. So it is a time where as you said, I think that the numbers did kind of level, but compared to where we were 2 months ago, we were a lot higher than we were.
We still have available testing free for staff and students, on site. If you show a student gets sick, if their parents want them tested, we'll have that available. Staff can come and we test, if they develop symptoms overnight, they can come and test in the parking lot.
And they still have an option, if they want to wear a mask, they can wear a mask.
We can't mandate it. We're asking them to self-screen just like we would any other sickness or disease.
Are they still scheduling the test through that app or the website?
Right now, we're not having, our numbers were so low, we did not have a problem. They would just cut them. But if those numbers, we have a contingency, if our numbers increase, to be able to do that.
Okay.
We still have a reporting requirement.
We do.
And so that's still in place.
Yep.
Cool. But that's my COVID update.
Anybody have a question? Well, thank you. Anything y'all want to talk about? Oh, I'm just kidding, you really can't. Because we're fixing to go into executive session, that means y'all have to leave.